Okay. Kufpei test, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so we're continuing Pruzbul here. Somebody hands over a star to Bezdin. He tells him, Atem Gvuli Chayvi, you Shemitah will not wipe it out. That's the beginning of what we call Pruzbul, which we'll discuss in a few sifim. Let's say somebody sells something to his friend on credit. It's as if he lent him money, and therefore Shemitah is Meshamet. But let's say a store owner that sells to other on credit, and it's not his derech to be tebeya until he gathers a lot of money. I mean, it's basically like a grocery store. Right, grocery store, they have a running bill. The Ein Meshamet, that's not considered a loan. And Shemitah is not Meshamet. It's a kafan a love the milva, but if at one point he decides that he's going to make it into a loan, the Hayra Shechishav Akol B'Yachad, that he considers everything together, because of Sach, and he writes in his notebook exactly the amount of time, the amount of money it is. As I have a halva, Meshamet, therefore then it's like a halva, and Shemitah is Meshamet. Yud Aleph, Schar Sacher Ein Meshamet. Let's say you have a salary, right? So Schar Sacher is not Meshamet, V'Msikafa Ela B'Milva, and if he ends up making it into a loan, then Meshamet it is, meaning you also got money, and you have to pay him by Shemitah, right? By the end of Shemitah, and so that's not called a loan. But if he told him, I'm going to pay you back, I can't meet payroll now, but I'm going to pay you back, then it is Meshamet. Yud Beis, Abba Mikoyach Akum. Let's say you're coming from the Koyach of a Goy, Harehu Akum, then he takes on the status of the Goy, Lapain. Misha Kona Me'akum Shtar Chayv al Yisrael. Somebody who's kind of from a Goy, a Shtar Chayv on Yisrael. Ein Meshamet is not Meshamet. Akum Haya Goy B'Shtari Lo'elam. Because a Goy could always collect, meaning all he's doing is he is kind of from a Akum, meaning he bought the debt, like all the mortgages do. So he bought the debt from a guy. So since it's coming from a guy, so then there's no Shemitah. And somebody who is an Arei for a guy for Yisrael, but like Para Yisrael, the Yid didn't pay. What's Yisrael Arei the Frei La'akum, which then means that the Yisrael, who's the guarantor, has to pay to the guy, but not as a shtar shalalayva, and he's the one that takes over the shtar from the guy. And a Meshamet, because basically it's a loan from a guy. But if there's no shtar, but he's tevev to his friend. Meaning it was just a verbal loan, and then he has to pay because of it to the guy. Hareza Potter, then he is Potter, because the Shemitah does cancel out the get. Fine, Yud Gimel. Ein Shvius Meshametes Ksafim Ela B'Seifa. Shemitah, like when do you sign the Pruzbul? We always sign the Pruzbul at the end of Shemitah, right? So Shvius is not Meshametes only at the end. So let's say somebody makes a loan during the actual year of Shemitah. Then he collects his chayv the whole year, meaning the entire year of Shemitah. But once it hits Shkia, on the evening of Rosh Hashanah, then the loan is lost. Yudalid loive shabal lefraya la'mal v'chayv shavar la shmita. Loive that comes to pay to the malva a chayv that passed over shmita. Meaning the guy made the loan, right? He made the loan, and the guy forgot to write a pruzbul, and shmita's over. So now l'chayri he's potter. So yomelei malva. So meaning, but the loiva decides to come pay back the loan anyways. And he's being a good Samaritan. He's going to pay back the loan anyways. So the malva says, "Meshamet ani asachayv kvar neftar to mimeni." He says, "I am pushing off the chayv, and meaning you don't owe me any money." That's what the malva is supposed to say. But if the loiva says to him, "Afa pikain writes ani to kabel mimeni," he says, "Even so, I want you to take it from me, mutter lamav makabel mimenu, then it is mutter for the malva to be makabel from him. Al yomer alayva b'chayv ani nas and lafat. The loiva shouldn't say I'm giving it to you as my chayv because the Torah says that he doesn't have a chayv. Ela yomer le shalihem. He should say it's mine or matana ani nas and I'm giving it to you as a matana. The yachal malva lastis is shtadlus mispilus, but the malva is allowed to make. He's allowed to make how do you call it stadlus efforts. And the spilus meaning even though the malva can't ask for the loan, but he could sort of leave hints that he really would be very happy if the lender paid him back. But if he can't do this, so then al yikofim and we should not take the money. I mean, the bottom line is the power is in the loiva's hands. If the loiva decides not to pay, so he's not going to pay. Fine. Tezvav, pruzbul ain't a mishamet. So like we know, the pruzbul, that's the star, is not mishamet. So what is that? A mal pruzbul. What is a pruzbul? The malva goes to 3 b'nei Torah. You bezdin that there's their bezdin. And he says to them, Atem dayanim, you dayanim, ma'isani lechem shekol chayv sheyeshli am ma'israel minachem. I'm giving over to you shekol chayv sheyeshli apleni v'apleni v'apleni. Any loans that I have on anybody, so that I collect these loans whenever I want. And they write to him this pruzbul, and this is what it said. When the 3 of us are sitting together, we were sitting together as one. Also, plenty of and this Pliny came in front of us and said in front of us, I'm giving you over the loans to your bezdin. And all 3 of them signed on the bottom, the lashon of dayanim, I have a lashon edim, with either as dayanim or as edim. I think, as far as I know, the meaning nowadays we call them edim. Yechad Lasa says, you could do this also at the end of the year, the Hanu B'erev Rosh Hashanah, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, Koydem Shkir Safam, before Shkir Safam. Yoshem She'emek Tzrifan, Daf Belipta as a Pruzbul, Ela died of Rashu Amil Lefneim. Meaning, some say you don't even need the Pruzbul. You don't have to write it. You can just say it. But people maybe become a bezdin, and even if you don't have a bezdin, Yochalem, I need Moisés Shtaros, the bezdin should not complain. Meaning the bezdin doesn't have to be there. You can hand it over to a bezdin in another city. Pruzbul only helps if the borrower has karka. Why? Because nobody gives loans to somebody who doesn't have karka. I mean, we don't just go take loans out. You always have to use collateral. Karka, cars, but as long as the leva has a little bit of karka, that's enough. Even if he only has a flower pot with a hole, sagi, that's enough. Even if the leva doesn't have anything, but the arev has, the leva is that, or somebody who owes money to the leva has fields, that's also okay. And if nobody has malva karka koshi, so then if the malva has a little bit of karka, he can be mezaka the karka to the leva. That would be worth his while. Like this, he could have loans. Even he can do it through somebody else. If even not if he's not in front of him, and it helps for the pruzbul. Okay, Simen Kufpei Aleph, Hilchos Tayim V'Nitan Ve'edus. That's when somebody has complaints against the other one, and Edus U'Boy Chafsid. So this is talking when you have, financial issues. So Kishanofel Ben Shnei Bnei Adam Ezus Sichsum. When 2 people have a fight, Roy Lev L'Spashim B'Toiv, it's best if they come to an agreement. Yeshivat Kolecha Neged Kaver, and each one should give in to his friend, Kedei L'Swafik Mizilusa Deveidina, B'Kol Ma'V'Esher, so that they could stay away from the zilusa of the Bezdin as much as they can, right? Because when you go to Bezdin, everybody ends up with complaints, etc., etc. But let's say they can't come to an agreement, and they're forced to go to judgment. They come in front of Bezdin. But let's say the Baldin is a very strong guy. He has to tell it to the Yidden first, and and then, if he doesn't want to come, then he could take reshus from Bezdin and say that. Meaning, basically, this is the most common thing. You want to try and bring a guy to Bezdin. I don't know the name, but You want to take a guy to Bezdin, he doesn't want to go. So first you gotta tell Bezdin to send him a summons, and then if he doesn't want to go, then you take the rishus from him. Then you take the rishus from Bezdin, then you can go to court. Let's say somebody's asking you for money that you know you have it. You can't go looking for ways to get out of paying back. Because that basically is what we do, right? With credit card debt or any type of debt, you call them up and you say, is that, and you hope that they chop down the debt a little bit. So you're not allowed to do that in the hope that he's going to make a deal. He's going to be mindful the rest. And if you over and you do this, you're not Yotze Shemayim, meaning even though Ben Adam L'Chaveri, he was mindful, but Shemayim is not going to be happy if you until you give him the proper amount. So this, unfortunately, from what I understand, is very bad in business. People are always trying to push people off, not pay them back, hope they'll come to a deal. That is incorrect, and you are not Yotze Shemayim. All right. I'm just going to run to Myrav. Everybody should have a fine night.
Go.
Have
a good night.